It's impossible to predict when tragedy will strike, and there's no way to prepare yourself for when it does. But sometimes, special circumstances come into play that can rescue a victim from the grip of death. And when that happens, it's often called a miracle. On June 10, 1995, 23-year-old Chris McAleer was a beach bum with no ambitions or goals other than catching the next perfect wave.
I thought I was going to be surfing, skating, and snowboarding my whole life.
But that summer, Chris's life would change forever. On June 10th, as he headed for the water at Newport Beach, California, Chris could tell that conditions were not perfect.
It was really low tide that day. I remember seeing the low tide and thinking, you know, I must be careful, because there will be sandbars popping up out of nowhere in the water.
Chris was an experienced surfer, and so, ignoring his initial misgivings, he headed into the water.
I was on a longboard that day, so catching waves was not very difficult at all.
After several successful runs, Chris had all but forgotten the danger that lay beneath the surface, a solid sandbar less than a foot below. And then, on a wave no different from any other, the unimaginable occurred.
I pitched on my head and I felt the click. And my body just felt like a funny bone, just numb, like God turned the switch off the back of my neck. I found myself face down in the water, unable to move, and I was totally conscious. I just remember thinking, please, somebody see me, come roll me over.
On shore, it was almost impossible to see what had happened. But Chris's longboard caught the attention of a young man. And in a bizarre twist of fate, former lifeguard Rob Stewart noticed his concern.
I saw a gentleman in front of me stand up, real alarmed-like. He got up, looked down at his wife, spun around, and just seemed real uptight about something. And then he sat down again. Just about 15 seconds later, bolted out of his seat again and started to head down towards the water. I knew there was something wrong out there. I ran up to that man and said,
"What do you got, man? You see that out there, man?"
And he said that he thought he had seen a body out there.
We gotta go. Oh, that's it.
The two men wasted no time in racing toward the lifeless body.
Upon reaching the body, I knew I had to do one thing first, and that is get some air into the victim, and I could not find a pulse. I needed something to get the victim up above water.
Hey, come over here, please. Come over here, please.
I kept checking for a pulse. I still just could not find one, and I'm getting very concerned that we're about to have, if we don't already have, a dead body.
And then, suddenly, all three men's lives were on the line.
We are caught in riptide, taking us out to sea. And I just kept saying to myself, we need help, we need help.
Moments later, his prayers were answered. Newport's Sea-Watch lifeguards had been contacted by someone on shore, and they headed towards the victim from all directions. Lifeguard Chris Hill was on the boat.
We came onto the scene, and we saw a surfer aiding another surfer with the lifeguard. The surfer being aided was lying on his back, on a board, and lifeless, no movement. First thing I did was I assessed that he was not breathing. And whether you have a broken neck, a broken back, or anything, if you're not breathing, you're not going to live very long.
Don, I got an airway, let's go!
The lifeguard team rushed Chris back to the pier, where paramedics and an ambulance were waiting.
Chris, hold on.
Miraculously, by the time he arrived at the hospital, he had regained consciousness. ICU nurse Chris O'Neill explained.
He talked about, I'll be okay, I'll be able to move. I had a sense from knowing what his injury was that that may not be true.
Chris's neck was broken. He would be paralyzed for the rest of his life. And still, he found the courage to send his fellow surfers a message.
I know you surfers out there, so many times when I've surfed Newport 12 feet, huge, and you just hop off your board and hit your head, you know, and you get a little kink, you think nothing of it. Next thing you know, you're just in a foot of water and you get hit the wrong way, and it's over. And it just takes one time not to see it like I did, and here you are.
Chris was lucky to be alive. He could just as easily have been left to drown, face down, unable to move his body. Someone was watching over Chris that day, and with the quick thinking and help of some very real guardian angels, his life was saved. Since his accident, another miracle of sorts has happened. While some would see paralysis as a reason for despair, Chris has a completely different attitude.
I'm glad that I broke my neck, for who knows where my life was going. I believe this happened for a reason. Now I'm doing things. I'm expanding my mind. I'm reading. I'm going to school. I'm educating kids. Good is coming from this. I'm a lot closer with my family. Closest relationship I've ever had with my parents. Life is just taking on a whole new meaning for me. And it's great.
Chris's life continues to improve. Recently, he purchased a van equipped with hand controls, which he drives to his numerous speaking engagements, and he plans to return to school in the near future. We wish him the best of luck.